This is a workshop or a presentation on how to create a paper-based verifiable credential. So here, it's based on the concept of structured credentials as highlighted in a separate video. So the idea is a credential, such as a purchase order, of which here is a copy, for 10 cabbages at $1 per cabbage. It's being ordered by ABC Groceries, and it's being ordered from David's Cabbages. And so the original copy of the purchase order here is inside the envelope. And the envelope has a window which enables a credential presentation, the ability to show selected information on the credential. The credential itself goes inside a credential envelope. The credential envelope has a flap that can be closed. It has a packing label that contains various metadata about the credential. And here, for example, type purchase order. And that's the packing label. And then if we want to make a verified credential, we need to put a seal or a proof on that envelope so that we know that it has never been opened or tampered with. So again, we've got the credential envelope. We have the packing label, which contains various metadata about the verified credential. It is a verified credential because it has a proof attached to it, a seal, that allows us to detect whether this envelope has been altered or not. And then for it to be useful, we need to be able to see the information inside. So we have selective disclosure via the credential envelope window. So let's go ahead, and with one hand, I'm going to try and make one of these. So let's take this one and put it aside. So let's take the other copy of the second copy of the purchase order between ABC Grocery and David's Cabbages for the 10 cabbages. This is a business document, and this is the data that will be part of the credential subject, part of a verifiable credential. So this selective disclosure has David's Cabbages, the supplier of those cabbages. So we want to send this purchase order to a department within ABC Grocery, namely the accounting department. So let's take this credential, put it in the envelope. A little tricky here, doing this with one hand. So there we have ABC Grocery. We have it in the credential envelope. We've already affixed the packing label or the metadata for type purchase order. We close the envelope, and we've already attached the ID for the verified credential. This is the outermost ID, so we're just using the TDW method space, Trusted Digital Web method space, and the PO sub method space. And I've just used the purchase order number. I didn't really show it, but it was pre-printed on that purchase order, :2, to say that this is a second envelope, a second verified credential. It has the same business document, the same credential information, the same claims inside, but it's going to a different recipient, a different holder. And so there we see that. So the next thing we have to do is we have to attach a proof to make sure that once this is on its way to the accounting department, that the accounting department can determine whether it has been altered or not. So we simply put that there. We generally try not to obliterate the metadata. But now we have two verifiable credentials. They have the same business information or the same business document inside, the same credential subject. Each of these has the same internal identifier, subject ID as it's sometimes referred to. But we have an outer envelope which represents the verifiable credential itself, the thing that contains the data. It's got a proof, it's got a packing label with metadata, and it has the outer ID. And the same thing over here. So I can talk to a transporter or a courier to have this verifiable credential delivered to David's Cabbage in Sovereign Gardens in Savronia, Canada. And I can have a transporter or a courier deliver this ABC this to ABC Grocery through the internal mail, because ABC Grocery is the issuer of the purchase order. And that's about it. I could talk a little bit about what I imagine the economic model to be, the business model. As you notice, there's a distinct process which results in the creation of the verifiable credential. That in itself has business value and can be a chargeable item. The creation of the verifiable credential. It's just like going to the store, to Staples, Business Depot, and buying a package of invoices or a package of purchase orders. You pay for 50 of them here, and I forget what it was. Let's say it was $2.50. So it's what, $5 for each of those, and it needs to be filled in. This isn't issued yet. This is just within ABC Grocery creating the purchase order and packaging it as a verifiable credential. So I'm being a little bit anal about that description of that, because then I think there's a bunch of other services that can happen to this verified credential. So I'm separating the creation of the object, or the idea of purchasing a verifiable credential object, from the services then that are applied to the object. So I've already talked about the transportation of verifiable credentials. So this verifiable credential needs to be transported or couriered from one agent to another agent to another agent until it ultimately reaches David's Cabbages. David Cabbages will have its own agent where it'll be processed, and it'll be processed ideally through a workflow solution. So there'd be a service cost associated with the transportation of each leg or step of this verifiable credential. And then possibly it's using a hosted workflow service to process the purchase order, and there might be a services-based charge for that. So the economic model is creating the object, and then transporting the object and the different kinds of processing of the object. Ultimately, there may be a cloud-based service that's responsible for the archiving and auditing of verifiable credentials. So archiving would have a cost associated with it. Auditing would have and storage, each of those would have their own services. So I've kind of gone on a little bit long about this, but it's an interesting way to look at these esoteric sort of JSON verifiable credential things and turn them into something that's real life. In a follow-up video, I'll take the concepts that we've discussed here and show how we can implement NFTs, non-fungible tokens, and artwork, coyote furs, pieces of toast as verifiable credentials. The one hint I'll give you, it's a recursive solution based on what we've seen so far. Talk to you later. Bye.